Nosferatu, a symphony of horror, or Nosferatu, is the oldest surviving Dracula film in existence. There were two other Dracula films before this, but those have unfortunately been lost to time. Nosferatu's legendary status and vampire have lived on for almost 100 years. This 1922 film from F.W. Murnau was one of the first of its kind and is probably the most well-known horror film from the early days of cinema. Bram Stoker's heirs sued the filmmakers for copyright infringement, and the court ruling demanded that all copies of this film be destroyed. However, one copy of the film had made it across the globe, allowing for distribution and keeping the film from the court's jurisdiction. This had happened because despite wanting to make a Dracula movie, the film studio which published this movie, Piranha Film, never actually acquired the rights to make it. Changes had to be made in order to try to differentiate it from the Dracula storyline, such as the removal of Van Helsing, the vampire hunter, but it wasn't quite enough. This was during the era of German Expressionism, an era that inspired countless movies and gave us strange yet powerful films such as The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and Nosferatu. During production, there was only ever one camera available, so at any time during filming there was only ever one copy of the film. If anything happened to the camera or the film, that was it. The screenplay, written by Henrik Galeen, was written quite specifically. It was meant to be expressed poetically and follow a sort of rhythm. On the set of Nosferatu, a metronome was used in order to control the pace and rhythm of filming. This film had a clear vision with sketches from the very beginning, and the director tried his best to follow those directions word for word. Nosferatu is seen as a very innovative and important film for the horror genre, but most of those innovations come from budgetary restrictions. Galeen's vision couldn't be adapted properly because of budget, so changes had to be made. Many of the sets in Nosferatu were actually filmed on location despite intentionally wanting fake-looking sets. This was because it was cheaper than constructing a set, and nowadays most films don't even use sets anymore. Most stuff is either on green screen or on location. Most of the special effects were filmed using old school tricks and wonky animation effects to pull them off. Sure, nowadays it looks kind of hilarious, but at the same time it was genuinely scary and impressive looking even today. Dracula himself, Count Orlok, in this film used cheap makeup that got worse and worse as the film went on. However, through Max Schreck's incredible performance, this look became iconic and added to the creepiness and the authenticity of the film. It was originally believed that Murnau had actually gotten a vampire to portray the character. Due to all of these budgetary setbacks, the filmmakers had to get creative, and this is where the film's charm and innovation shine through. Upon release, Nosferatu was greeted with mostly positive reviews. Some called the film out for its lousy effects and makeup, but most praised it for being so thematic, immersive, and creating a perfect mood. Much like today, Nosferatu was praised for his visual style, camera work, and of course, the iconic portrayal of Dracula. Unfortunately, the production company that published Nosferatu filed for bankruptcy shortly after the film's release, due to the fact that they couldn't meet the Stoker family's demands. The film, however, went on to become a huge cult success. There's been countless nods and parodies, and even a fictional film that portrayed the making of Nosferatu, The Shadow of the Vampire. Willem Dafoe does an okay job as Count Orlok, but the makeup ironically looks worse than it does in Nosferatu, despite this film having a higher budget. The thing that strikes me the most is just how close this film was to never surviving outside of Germany. Due to the complications of filming, the horrible lawsuit, there was one point where only one copy of this film existed, and that narrowly escaped the torch. In a way, this is the film that the Stoker heirs wanted eradicated, and that alone makes it very interesting. So how does this film actually hold up after 100 years? Surprisingly well. While not scary by any means anymore, and the film around Nosferatu is mostly boring, it's worth a watch just for Max Schreck and his legendary performance as the killer vampire. The film is actually in public domain now and available for free on YouTube, so if you have time, I definitely recommend checking out for yourself. Nosferatu is a pinnacle of old school horror. It is widely considered to be one of the greats of the silent era, and its surreal art style and makeup still hold up to this day. While the company that published this film faded into obscurity, this film will live on throughout the years as one of the first ever Dracula movies. May it live another 100 years.